Hello, spooky friends, and welcome to another episode of the Scaryish podcast.
Woo!
I'm Gravity Grace, and this is Adam Diaz.
Hello.
And we are here to share with you folks a couple topics that we think are pretty cool.
Indeed. I'm pretty excited for this episode. I'm going to be covering the possession of David Glatzel. What are you going to be covering this week?
I have the Bunnyman.
The Bunnyman?
Yeah.
Like that thing from Donnie Darko? Is that the Bunnyman?
Yep.
Is it really?
No.
Oh, I got excited. Like, I knew something that might connect with this. Yeah, mine is a possession that I will get to, and I'll give you some more details as it unfolds so you can realize what it connects to. But yeah, it's a really interesting one. Honestly, I was super creeped out when I was doing the research for it. For those of you out there who have a story you would like to share with us, we call those stories homegrown horrors. Robin, can you give us an example of what a homegrown horror would be?
So homegrown horrors are tales of supernatural, paranormal, sometimes spiritual. We've even had stories that were totally coincidental. And you folks share that with us, and we get to share it with the rest of the spooky friends.
Indeed. So if you have a story like that, you can go ahead and email storytime@scaryish.com or go to our website, scaryish.com, and click on Contact Us. Fill out that form and send it directly to us, or you can hit us up on any of our social medias, and we will be happy to read those live on our Storytime episodes, which are recorded every Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time at youtube.com/Scaryish and twitch.tv/Scaryish podcast. The day this episode releases, we will be recording a Storytime episode live, so please join us for those. However, this is the topic episode, so we're going to go ahead and jump into those. Robin, I believe you are going first.
Alrighty, so if you folks have caught up with our whole catalog of episodes, you've probably heard of Goatman's Bridge. Now I'm going to tell you guys about the Bunnyman Bridge.
So this is a bridge that's associated with it too.
Yep. So it's a pretty cute name. It's just about this adorable dude. He kind of goes around and leaves eggs on people's yards.
Sounds like Easter a little bit.
Yeah, he's totally harmless. 100% for the kids.
Right on.
Yeah.
That was a good story.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
As you can obviously tell, that's the Easter Bunny. And this episode comes out on Fat Tuesday. And I'm hoping everybody gets all their malasadas and their good food and all that stuff in before Lent.
I totally forgot tomorrow is Fat Tuesday.
Yeah.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah, so we're going to be giving up junk food. And I think it'd be cool if you guys kind of told us, like, what you're giving up for, if you guys even do that. If you don't do that, yeah, you obviously whatever. But
it's funny, too, because none of us are Catholic, but we participate in Lent, because we do like the idea of giving up something that's bad for you or taking on a good habit.
Yeah.
And we don't always do it, but yeah, I think this year we're definitely going to.
Last year I was like, I'm not going to eat ice cream or something like that. And I didn't eat ice cream for so long. I used to want to go to get ice cream every single night. I was like, oh, let's go get ice cream.
It was literally every single night. Like, can we drive 40 minutes to this ice cream place? And I was like, are you serious right now? So yeah, that definitely helped.
Yeah, all this Easter stuff while I was like typing out stuff about bunnies and whatever. I was like, oh my gosh, it's like Mardi Gras and all that stuff coming up. But yeah, I just thought it was really funny.
Don't forget, if you show your boobs, someone owes you beads. That's just how it goes up until Ash Wednesday. I'm pretty sure that's how it goes. I'm not 100% sure on that, though.
Anyway, this bunny is not as cute and not as harmless as the Easter Bunny. I mean, I guess technically no one really knows that the Easter Bunny's harmless. I'm sure he could.
I think we all kind of just assume the Easter Bunny's harmless.
This particular urban legend is definitely much more sinister, so we're going to take a time machine to the 1970s when things were a whole lot different than they are now. And why are you rolling your eyes?
I'm just trying to picture which part of the 1970s and just how different.
We're going to head on over to Fairfax County, Virginia, where the history of the area dates back to the Civil War. So this place has been around for a really long time. You can imagine that there's a lot of history down that road.
Oh my god, a lot of history down that road.
Supposedly there's even an insane asylum that was built there at one point. Unfortunately, the residents obviously weren't a very big fan of this new insane asylum that gets built in their area, and eventually the institution was closed down. Supposedly, during the transfer of the patients from the institution, there was a bus crash, or like one of the cars in their convoy like crashed, and some escaped and hid in the nearby forest/woods, and most of these patients were found except for a Marcus Loster and a Douglas Griffin. And the story goes that while searching for these people, authorities were on a trail of half-eaten, mutilated bunnies. So while they're trying to go find these two people that escaped this institution, they're like, what the hell is up with all these bodies?
Was it the inmates, like, eating these rabbits?
That's what the legend has it. Okay, so the trail led them through the deep woods to a tunnel bridge that crossed a wide creek, and they found Loster there, hanging from the entrance of that tunnel, with a note that was attached to his foot that said, quote, "You'll never find me no matter how hard you try."
Wow.
And it was signed the Bunnyman. Which
Are you shitting me?
Which is super creepy. But it was two people that escaped. People think it was the other guy that was with him that hung hung Loster. So it's super creepy. The problem that I have with this particular version of the story is that they don't ever say if they ever find that guy down the road. Down that road. But some versions of the story have it where that guy gets chased down by cops or something. The legend itself has a number of variations, which is normal with any legend. I mean, any urban legend is obviously going to be told by a whole bunch of different people, and people are going to add their own little twists on it and things like that. Most of the stories that are told involve a man wearing said bunny costume with an axe. So that's terrifying. This guy that's just dressed as a bunny rabbit carrying around an axe.
So if he actually existed, he escaped, found himself a bunny costume, and found himself an axe, and was like, I'm going to make a go of this. I'm really excited.
Maybe he was already in the costume when he escaped.
So he was wearing a bunny costume during prison transfer or patient transfer or whatever?
This is it's a transfer of mentally unstable people.
Where would you acquire a bunny costume?
Maybe that's what he
hospital?
needs. Maybe he's like, bruh, I need to be in this bunny costume. I need it.
Okay.
A lot of the stories also often occur near Colchester Overpass near Clifton, Virginia, nicknamed Bunnyman Bridge. Some stories have victims being mutilated. Some just speak of the ghost of the Bunnyman. But Colchester Overpass is just an overpass that was built around 1907 and just over time has been associated with the Bunnyman legend. The ghost of the Bunnyman is said to come out from under the overpass, which is his place of death. So people are saying like the Bunnyman was lost or something like it is so strange, you know, because there's some stories that say Loster was the Bunnyman or something like that because it's the place of his death. And then there are other stories that say it's the other guy who got hit by a train or something like that.
The one who wrote the note or whatever.
Yeah. It's just, that's the thing with legends. It's hard to pick and choose what you want.
Yeah, because when people retell it and they're not sure of the origin, they just make up an origin so that they can tell the story.
Yeah, so it's said that each year on Halloween, like celebrating the anniversary of his passing, he comes out from under the overpass, which is super duper creepy. Some say that if you walk all the way down the tunnel around midnight, the Bunnyman will grab you and hang you from the entrance of the bridge, which is super duper creepy. So first, some supposed deaths connected to the Bunnyman and the Bunnyman Bridge. I say supposed because these are like the deaths that are told in legends. It's not documented ones. So the first is a young man came in from Clifton, Virginia, who came across the bridge on his travels. Legend has it that this guy then killed his parents soon after that happened and dragged their bodies into the woods and then hung them from the bridge before he killed himself.
Wow.
In 1943, 3 teenagers, 2 men and a young woman, were hanging out at the bridge on a Halloween night. The 3 teenagers were later found dead and hung from the bridge with their bodies slashed open. I was like, that's just way too intense to be real. Can
you imagine what it would be like if that was real? I'm fairly certain that there would be newspaper articles all over the place and news stories being run on it, because that is horrific.
Supposedly, they all had notes on them that were similar to the ones that the one that was found on Loster, where it's like, oh, you can't catch me, bro.
I can't believe he nicknamed himself the Bunnyman when he's saying you can't catch me, and the natural reaction after that is, because I'm the gingerbread man.
And I think that's what makes it a little bit hard to believe, because why would he give himself the name the Bunnyman? Unless that was maybe a nickname that he had while in an institution or something like that,
he was eating half of those bunnies along the way. He was like, I thought of a great nickname.
I hear bunny is good, though.
Really?
No, I don't know. I don't know anybody who eats rabbit.
Okay, that's good to know.
In 2001, 6 local students and a guide were searching the area trying to come across anything to do with the legend, and what they found were mutilated bunny parts, which is so messed up. They got out of that forest pretty quick after seeing strange figures moving around in the woods.
Wow.
Some people say that if you go around like Halloween and things like that, or just to check out the area at all, they keep finding more bunnies, like not live ones.
I wonder if there's just an animal that hunts them, and because it's like it teaches its offspring to hunt, or its offspring hunts with it, like they don't consume the entire corpse.
Like a Bigfoot or something?
No, I was thinking more like a wolf, like an actual creature. But I don't know. That doesn't make any sense. I doubt a wolf would like raise its young to be like, yeah, just don't eat the ass on this thing. It's just gross.
I mean, when I was writing all this...
Hashtag don't eat ass.
Oh my god, that's callback. So, when I was reading all this stuff, I just was thinking that there are teenagers that want to keep this legend going, so they just do it for fun.
Well,
or something like that,
those,
you know?
I'm pretty sure mutilating animals is like one of those 10 check marks that you can give a person that's going to be a potential serial killer.
Yep, pretty much. Hopefully they don't become killers, but you know.
Hopefully it's not actual teenagers and it's just some wildlife that keeps killing. Oh, I shouldn't say hopefully they're killing, but hopefully that's an actual explanation for it.
So even though these first ones aren't necessarily real or documented or anything like that, where it's definitely this happened, there are real reported incidents of strange things happening with people that are dressed as a bunny man. Brian A. Conley, a historian archivist from the Fairfax County Public Library, has researched the Bunnyman legend pretty extensively and has found 2 incidents of what is most likely the Bunnyman. And the legend originates with a couple having reported attacks from a man in a rabbit costume. And this guy's just going around threatening people with an axe, apparently. And the first of these incidents occurred on the evening of October 19th, 1970. And it was reported by a U.S. Air Force Academy cadet. So not just anybody. This guy has got to be... serious, you know? I feel like anybody who's in the military or training or something like that is serious.
Yeah, at the very least, they wouldn't, like, make something up and file an official report on it, you know?
Right. And his name was Robert Bennett. He was with his fiancée at the time. And these two were visiting relatives on Guinea Road in Burke, Virginia. And they were out at around midnight and walked to their car after a football game. So they had parked their car along Guinea Road, supposedly, quote, to visit an uncle who lived across the street from where the car was parked, end quote. And they were just sitting in the car with the motor running and noticed some movement outside their rear window. Now, when I read that they were sitting in their car with the motor running, I just assumed they started the car, and as soon as they started the car, they saw something, you know, and they're still sitting there trying to figure out what it is that they saw. But they noticed something outside their rear window, and then moments later, something just smashed through the front passenger side window, and a figure dressed all in white was standing just outside their broken window.
Fuck that, dude.
It's like something out of a horror movie. Just trying to imagine sitting there, you're like, oh, night out, we just got back, gonna head home, do whatever. And you're totally unsuspecting, and then your freaking car window just shatters. And then there's some creepy dude just standing there staring at you. And so Bennett did the only thing that he could think of and tried to get out of there as fast as he could. And I can't even imagine trying to kind of pull yourself together after your window just shatters. And then you see this creeper, like, this is how I die. A murderer's here to kill me. You know what I mean?
It's nice that they're in the car and it was running, so all you have to do is shift and then, slam on the gas. And then, I don't know, if you're pointing in a direction where you might be able to sideswipe him, maybe take him out while you're on your way.
Well, then, there's so many factors with it, too, because what if they were parallel parked? You can't just press down on the gas and then get out of there.
Well, you imagine if they're parallel parked, then there will be other witnesses aside from just them, so you might feel a little bit safer, like, having more people around you, but I don't know, man.
I don't know.
This is weird.
I don't know if this place is kind of rural, where there's not a lot of
That's what I pictured.
Yeah.
Like a makeout spot almost is what I was picturing. So.
But I'm not sure. Who knows? Maybe it is like a regular suburb or something like that. I don't know what it's like there. So they pulled out of there. All the while, the man was screaming after them something about trespassing and along the lines of, quote, "You're on private property and I have your tag number," end quote.
That just sounds like a furry who was really annoyed that they were on private property.
Maybe they were trying to have a furry party and people were
right. You are ruining the furry orgy. Please fuck off.
Well, further down the road, when they were a safe distance away from the strange dude, they noticed that there was a freaking hatchet on the floor of their car. So this guy threw a hatchet through the window.
Wow.
Which is absolutely horrifying.
Maybe he was just a huge fan of that Gary Paulson book that we all had to read in like 3rd or 4th grade.
Which one is that?
Hatchet.
I've never even heard of that before.
You never heard of it? I think
No.
it was Gary Paulson. I might be wrong about that. I'll have to check.
All I know is Sarah Paulson.
Or Robert Paulson. His name was Gary Paulson. Let me check and make sure I'm right about that. Someone out there that read Hatchet is either very impressed right now or very annoyed that I got the author's name really, really wrong. It totally is Gary Paulson. I totally fucking nailed that. I'm very proud of myself.
Cool.
I read that book like 30 years, well no, 25 years ago. Legitimately, that's how long
Is it about this stuff?
It's about a plane. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mixing it up with another one, it's about a kid that has a hatchet, and he's on a plane ride, and his plane crashes in the woods, and he has to figure out like how to survive in the woods, and like he uses his hatchet for a bunch of shit. So
what airline?
It's like a private plane, like flying him.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say you would never
into
get
the
away.
wilderness. I think about it literally every time I go to Canada because we take a plane. It's a pontoon plane that lands us on a lake, but you have to fly for 45 minutes over like the middle of nowhere, Ontario. So it's a little bit terrifying having read that book. But yeah, I remember reading that book when I was very, very young.
Nice. All right, so when Bennett went on to describe the man that they saw, police were shocked to be looking for a man wearing a white suit with long bunny ears. Bennett's fiance countered that report, saying that they weren't actually bunny ears, but that he was wearing a white pointed hood, kind of like what the KKK can be seen wearing,
Yeah, that's what I started thinking of.
Both saw his face pretty clearly, so that's a little... So when I think that she saw something in a hood, I'm like, if you could see their face, that's not it.
Well, they can lift that hood up so you can see their face.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But they couldn't pull out any defining features of the person that they saw because it was so dark. People examined maybe it was because it looked like a rabbit, and they're like, oh shit, maybe we can't really say that, it was a rabbit, who knows. But police examined the hatchet that they handed over and ended up returning it back to Bennett when they were done with it, which is so weird. And Bennett was required to report the incident to the Air Force upon his arrival at the academy. So if this guy made it up, he wouldn't have just made it up because he had to tell the Air Force, like, this is what happened. This is what I saw.
Right. Like, why make it up if you're just going to create an incident for, like, multiple enforcement, like a law enforcement agency and a branch of the military that have to, like, document it, you know?
It's just, I wouldn't make it up. If I were in the military, they'd think I was crazy, you know? So the second sighting of the Bunnyman was only 10 days later. And on October 29th, 1970, a security guard for a construction site named Paul Phillips approached a man that was standing on the porch of an unfinished home in Kings Park West along Guinea Road. So it's along that same stretch of road that the first attack was on. And according to Phillips, this man that he saw was wearing a gray, black and white bunny costume. He was approximately 20 years old, 5 feet 8 inches, so about my height, and 175 pounds. So this bunny man was chopping at one of the porch posts. So those are like I assume it's one of the columns, maybe, like the...
Right.
Yeah. So he was chopping at one with a long-handled axe while saying, quote, "All you people trespass around here. If you don't get out of here, I'm going to bust you on the head," end quote. Which is so scary.
You know what this kind of reminds me of is in 2016 when all those clowns kept popping up everywhere, scaring everyone. If that sort of thing were to happen without, like, social media or even, like, news media that we have nowadays where it's like you just hear about things almost immediately, I can understand where urban legends would pop up. Because, like, clearly those are people just screwing around trying to scare people. But, like, if it was someone who just decided, like, I'm going to wear a bunny costume and take an axe and scare people because they had heard about the legend, might also be that.
But I think throwing an axe through a window is too much.
Yeah, it's way too much.
So I think this is the stuff that kind of caused the urban legend to start. It wasn't somebody doing it on purpose, like, we heard about this bunny man, this is what we're going to do. You know what I mean? I think all the legends stem from this one thing. Or two things, I guess. Because it's not that far apart from each other. It just happened one on top of the other. And I think there might have been someone out there who was maybe not all there, right? And they were out and they decided that they were going to do some crazy shit. And it blew up, you know? All I know is that if I were a security guard and I came across a dude that had an axe in his hand, I'm like, I'm not paid enough for this shit. I'm just a security guard. Investigations were opened by the Fairfax County Police for both incidents, but eventually closed due to lack of evidence. I guess 1970, there were cameras in 1970. But I guess it was a lot harder to take a photo than it is now. You know, people couldn't just whip out their phones.
I'm pretty sure, like, the first personal camcorder was released in, like, 1980, and that was only in Japan.
Really?
Don't ask me how I know that. I'll tell you here when I do my story.
Okay. So, like, how many legends grow after these incidents, numerous people contacted police claiming to have seen this quote-unquote bunny man. One report stated that this bunny man even ate their runaway cat.
No, that's horrible.
So it's just these people read stuff in the news and then they want to put the blame on something, you know? Media published articles like, "Man in bunny costume sought in Fairfax," or "Bunny reports are multiplying."
That's a good one.
So it's just, oh my god, when I typed that out, I didn't even get it because bunnies multiply so fast. What?
Correct.
That's genius. Okay, I get it now. So, some say this bunny man is the inspiration for the movie Donnie Darko because that bunny dude is so creepy.
That's immediately where my head went.
If you guys haven't seen Donnie Darko, you guys should. I think it's a mind fuck of a movie.
It's definitely weird.
It's really, really, really weird. But I think it's one of those cult classic movies that you just watch just once. You probably won't like it, but just watch it once.
All I know is all around me are familiar faces.
Oh man, that song.
Mad World.
When I hear that song, that's all I think. All I think is Donnie Darko.
I think of Donnie Darko, and then I think of the Gears of War, the original, the first one trailer. Because that trailer is fucking awesome, and it has that song playing in the background.
Really?
Oh yeah, it's so good.
The first Gears I played was like Gears of War 3, so...
Oh, well, you see... Okay, but
okay, so... did you know that there's a sequel to Donnie Darko?
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's called Sarah Darko, and it is not as good. It's like the same premise, but it's just falls flat, I guess, because it's like, been there, done that, you know?
Do they explain anything? Like, I don't want to spoil Donnie Darko for anyone who hasn't seen it, but there's just some weird stuff that they don't explain that they just kind of expect people to go and, like, investigate.
They don't explain it, dude. It's just so weird. And she's all fucked up from the first movie, from the things that occur in the first movie. She's not really in the first movie. I don't remember her being in it very much, if at all.
I don't remember Sarah Darko, but I've only ever seen Donnie Darko one time, so...
Yeah, I think I've seen it once or twice, maybe 3 times. 3 times, my lady.
It's too many.
But yeah, no, the Sarah Darko's not as good. You can skip it. But yeah, so anyway, since those first run-ins with the Bunnyman, the legend has even spread through the Washington, D.C. area, which isn't that far. Virginia to Washington, D.C., it's like connected, right? So it's... Anyway, so... Where in Virginia, the Bunnyman seems to be a guy who kind of runs around terrorizing people. In D.C., the story goes that he's actually a murderer. And legends have it that he was someone who murdered, vandalized, and was pretty much an all-around strange bad dude. And story goes that he was pursued by the cops all the way to the Bunnyman Bridge, where he was subsequently hit by a train when he was cornered. And that's kind of where the two legends kind of blend together, because some say that that was the other guy that escaped and got cornered by the police and then got hit by a train. And he's the ghost of the Bunnyman or whatever, that is the one that died there. But then other people say it's Losters that is the one that haunts there. It's just all these legends kind of come together. So it's a little difficult to discern which one you want to believe in. The Bunnyman Bridge has become a popular place for paranormal investigators / enthusiasts to visit, which is totally understandable because it does look really creepy. Obviously, a Halloween is when it gets super busy, leading to local authorities being forced to patrol the area. On Halloween of 2011, over 200 people that traveled to see it were turned away during a 14-hour traffic checkpoint into the area. I think that's just insane that all these people were like, bro, let's go see the Bunnyman Bridge. And over 200 people, that's it, to this small area just to see this one little thing.
Right.
That's just insane. Some say that you can hear laughing or even catch a glimpse of a man wearing a bunny suit. And hopefully doesn't try to attack you, especially as there are recent occurrences of deaths near the area. And I read an article as recent as 2018 about bodies that were found near there. The article that I read from 2018 was like, body found near Bunnyman Bridge. And I was just like, what? This is so recent. Supposedly a total of about 32 people have died there or around there.
Wow, good God.
Which is crazy. It's just really scary to think that there are actual reports of bodies near there, because it just kind of makes the legend grow and grow and grow, because it might have nothing to do with it, but people are still going to be like, dude, did you hear that there was another body that was found or something like that?
Right.
So yeah, the Bunnyman is cute and scary.
I don't know how cute he is, but he's definitely scary.
The name is cute.
The name is kind of cute. When you put man at the end of bunny, though, I don't know, it gets some of the cuteness taken away. So,
well, like Spider-Man. Spider-Man's cute.
But that's just because of Tom Holland, because he's adorable. But yeah.
I mean, Andrew Garfield's adorable, too.
He's alright. Tobey Maguire was alright. They're all alright.
No.
You don't like Tobey Maguire?
No.
Okay, this is a debate for a different podcast.
Okay.
So I don't want to trigger anyone like Tobey Maguire enthusiasts out there going to send us hate mail.
Sorry, just a big
Hashtag
no.
one true Spider-Man.
Oh my God, no.
Not for me. I'm just saying
No.
that's what they would say. But right on. Good topic. I liked
Cool,
it.
thanks.
So before we move into my topic, we're going to take a quick commercial break. And we're back. Yeah, I do different sounds than Robin. Don't get mad.
They're not as cute.
No, they're not, but you weren't doing anything, so I had to take over. So this week, I decided to go back to our topic list to see which one stood out the most to me that I could cover. And while we have some good stuff still on there that's been on there for a while, one that keeps popping out at me since I put it on there is one that I referenced a few episodes back. This topic is going to be one that falls into the category of, quote, based on a true story. And there have been multiple books and movies written and filmed about the events I am about to describe. So, dear listener, I present to you The Possession of David Glatzel. And I will say that at the end of this, I'll have a different name for this, which will most likely be the name of the episode. So this is basically me just teasing Robin.
All right.
So before we get into the story, let it be known that as per usual, this could all be bullshit. I mean, certain things definitely happened in this story, but the explanation of the how and the why they happened are certainly up for debate. In fact, they've been heavily debated over for the last 4 decades. The most famous book about these events is known as The Devil in Connecticut. And upon its publication, or I should say its republication in 2006, it caused a few lawsuits. But I will get to that at the end of this topic. So clearly, cool. It is still a sensitive spot for some folks. But let's get into it. The events we're going to discuss take place in 1980. Y'all remember 1980, right? Well, you should, because I already fucking recapped 1980 in a previous episode.
Really?
So all of these things were already taken. However, some notable things I didn't mention last time. 1, Macaulay Culkin was born in 1980. 2, Jessica Simpson was also born in 1980.
Macaulay Culkin and Jessica Simpson are the same age?
Yeah, can you believe that shit?
What?
Macaulay Culkin just got some city miles on him.
I was going to say, he looks like he No offense, Macaulay Culkin.
I think he actually looks great now. But there was a time when I saw him, I was just like, oh, man, Kevin McAllister has some serious PTSD.
He was going through a lot of stuff. And
yeah, he has had a rough life.
I agree that he does look a lot healthier now, which is good. Shout out to you.
His brother Kieran Culkin is, what's-his-face?
The guy that yells, fight!
Yeah, from Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Okay, so another thing in 1980, the Miracle on Ice happened when the U.S. beat the USSR in hockey in the Olympics. And as a reminder...
Hockey is an Olympic sport?
Yeah, dog. Why wouldn't it be an Olympic sport?
That's kind of cool. Just winter? Or is it like, okay.
Just winter.
Okay. I don't know if they can... Okay.
Summer hockey means it's really more like swimming with a stick and then a puck that doesn't even float.
Do we have polo? Is that an Olympic?
Polo is an Olympic sport.
No, like water polo?
Yep, water polo is an Olympic sport.
Oh, cool.
So
I obviously don't watch the Olympics.
Very clearly, yeah. As a reminder, in 1980, The Empire Strikes Back also came out. I said that one last time, but I fucking love that movie. It's my favorite Star Wars. What else happened in 1980 is a man named Arnie Cheyenne Johnson. So I'm going to refer to him as Cheyenne because that's what everyone refers to him as. And his fiancée, one Debbie Glatzel, had, as tends to happen in these stories, recently come into possession of a new home.
Oh my God, your stupid laugh.
It was actually a rental home, but they did intend to move in once they got the place cleaned up. I want you to picture a house in rural Connecticut. Just a smaller, but somehow ideal home. So whatever your mind's eye creates.
All I can think of is the Haunting in Connecticut movie.
Don't think of that.
Okay.
This is different. So whatever small but ideal home your mind created, it is yellow. So make the color yellow and then give it shutters that are olive green. Now, Debbie Glatzel stated, quote, "It was my little dream house."
That's cute.
One thing that folks tend to do when they move out of a place is leave behind large objects they don't want to move. Either it's too awkward to try and get it out of the house.
Or it's possessed.
Or it's too heavy. I mean, it could be possessed. I've never intentionally left something in a house. I mean, I had some heavy-ass furniture that I didn't want to move, but I took my bed was the heaviest thing, and then I had a couch that was also really heavy. I ditched the couch when I moved from Arizona back to Las Vegas, but I sold it to a coworker for like $50. When I left, he came over and grabbed it, so... I've never left an object in a house for the new residents to come into. But I understand that it does happen. Like sometimes when you're leaving a place, you just ditch an item or you negotiate it into the price if it's valuable enough, like appliances.
I could see that. Yeah.
So in the case of Cheyenne and Debbie, when they were going into this rental home, they found one such item left behind. Can you guess the item? One hint. I have, for several years in my life, owned one such item.
What?
You're not going to guess it. If you guess this, I will give you $1 million.
Okay, so you say you've owned it.
I owned one of these in my lifetime for several years.
Golf clubs?
No, I've never owned golf clubs.
What? Weak.
The object that was left behind, you only got one guess.
Oh.
The object that was left behind was a waterbed.
Ew.
It was left in the master... I like that you ewed the waterbed.
It's
Have you
just
had a
like,
waterbed before?
I've slept in them, but it's not like in them. I've slept on a waterbed.
I was gonna say, then how did you survive?
It's just, those things are, I feel like they're not sanitary. I don't know. I just don't, I don't like them.
I know about sanitary, but they are certainly not that comfortable.
Stuff falls in those cracks.
What cracks?
Like where you lay the waterbed in the little rectangle area. Like you lay
in the box spring?
Yeah.
Well, it's like, yeah, you can lose anything in a bed, but like that bed specifically, you can definitely lose more in. It was left in the master bedroom of the home, and as tends to happen when one discovers a waterbed, everyone present at the time took a turn sitting on it or laying in it.
Dead body underneath.
And for those of you who have never been on
Inside?
a waterbed, it's like a regular bed, except it moves, you need to heat it, and it fucking sucks.
It sounds annoying, too.
It is really annoying. You have to make sure
You just hear the...
You have to make sure you get all the air bubbles out of it, because, like, what's a good joke to make for this? So, yeah, when you're making noises that sound like the noises you just made, it's like the bed's also making the noises back at you, so it's just really, really weird. You don't know which ones of them are happy noises and which ones of them are bed noises.
Ew!
That said, there is more motion in the ocean, and I hope you know what that means. It means the fucking bed rocks constantly. Also, if you leave bubbles in it, like I just said, you hear that sloshing sound every time you scooch during the middle of the night, which is awful. What were we talking about again?
We were talking about waterbeds.
The devil. That's what we were talking about before waterbeds. Anyways, one of the folks there that did not lay on the waterbed, which I think must be just a curse of the waterbed, was someone named David Glatzel. It's Debbie's younger brother. And at the time this took place, David was only 11 years old, by most accounts. Some sources list him as 12 years old at this time.
And he didn't lay on the waterbed?
He didn't. Everyone else got on it and sat down like, oh, waterbed, which is what everyone has to say when they get on, like, oh, it's moving, stupid stuff like that. David, 11, 12 years old, you figure he'd be down.
Yeah.
But he did not get on it.
Okay.
Which sounds a little bit crazy. Like, why the hell wouldn't he want to set sail? Well, he just did not feel comfortable in the house. So they're cleaning this house. They continued to clean. And eventually David decided to return to the master bedroom. And he walked over to the waterbed.
Pulled an Edward Scissorhands.
Still deciding if he wanted to sit on it. And as a side note, this isn't some bullshit detail I made up for a fun story. There was really a waterbed, and he really did feel uncomfortable, and he really did go back to it later in the day, like, maybe I will sit on it,
Yeah.
This is a real thing. Unless it's all bullshit and they made it up, but before he could decide whether or not he was going to sit, he suddenly felt a push, and someone had shoved him onto the bed. And he looked around to see what the fudge had pushed him, but he was alone in the room. And while he sat on the bed, and you can just imagine like the sloshing from being shoved onto it, and that really unstable feeling, which kind of makes you a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah.
He suddenly saw someone in the room with him. Like, imagine like moving your head back and forth in this room that's dark because there's no fucking light unless there's an overhead fan, and all of a sudden there's someone there with you, and you were just shoved. And what he saw was an old man with a reddish complexion, a torn plaid shirt, and blue jeans, who was just there staring at him. And he said one thing to David: beware.
Oh no.
So David bolted off the bed and ran to find Debbie and Cheyenne, and he told them that there was an old man that shoved him on the bed, and he issued him a warning. And now there are details here that are a little sparse, so we're not sure exactly what happened after that. But they state that they didn't really believe him. They wandered around to try and validate the claim. And they just assumed that he was making something up to get out of cleaning. And although that's kind of a dick thing to assume about a kid who seems genuinely scared, kids can be full of shit from time to time. So I don't know whether or not that they're just like, ugh, David trying to get out of cleaning again. But in this case, they were most certainly wrong. They stayed Not in that house that night, but they went back to the house that they had previously been staying at. And it would be reasonable if they stayed in that house. It is a new house, but they did not. I had to look a lot to figure out which house that they had gone back to. And it's funny, too, because when I was looking through it, I was like, I remember being a kid. Like, we stayed in our house before we had any furniture, before we even had carpet. And it was just like that subfloor. We put our sleeping bags on the subfloor. We got a 19-inch TV that we brought to the house. And I just bought a Super Nintendo, and we hooked it up, and we played, like, all night. And it was awesome. It's this beautiful, pure memory that I have with me and my brother staying up all night playing video games. So I saw that while I was reading this, like, really creepy story. So they went back, and the night did not go well for young David. Before they left, you will not be shocked to hear, and I'm fairly certain this happened before they left, the old man came back. So it was nighttime.
Oh, no.
David was going around the house still cleaning, and I just imagine, and this is just me now, he turned the corner to a hallway, and suddenly the old man is there again. But when the old man appeared the second time to David, his reddish complexion was now that of burned skin, nearly black.
What?
And his jeans were torn around the ankles, and this time it says his feet were exposed, but of course they were not feet, they were hooves. So David sees this guy. He said it looked like he had deer feet, is what he said to his family.
Oh my gosh. Because this kid is 11, so he's just like...
He doesn't realize, like, oh, hooves, you're Satan.
Yeah.
You know? So they would leave the home for the night. They headed back to where they're staying, and Debbie and David's mom, Judy, were there as well, along with their younger, it might be older, but the brother Carl, who was also present, and of course Cheyenne, who was the boyfriend, I think actually fiance. So they have 5 folks sitting around this kitchen table, and David brings this up. David's like, yo dogs, that old man totally came back, but this time he was all burnt up. He had like deer feet and shit this time. And Judy, his mom, actually believed him. She stated that, quote, I believed him instantly. I've read about the supernatural. I've heard the Warrens lecture. When he first explained it, I thought it was a ghost. David also stated that this time when the man appeared, he muttered in some horrific and guttural voice and spoke in a different language.
Oh, I have chills, dude. That's scary.
And dude, I got so many chills doing this story where I was like, some of the stuff is cheesy and lame, and then like, when you went, like, she finished first this evening, and so she went to go relax a little bit while I finished my script, and I was like, yeah, just leave Letterkenny on. Like, I need background noise right now. I don't want to be in here in the darkness. It stated that the different language that this old man was speaking was Latin. I'm not sure how they could confirm that. Some of the only things David claims he was actually able to understand that was spoken in English were threats. And one threat in particular he was able to make out is that the old man said he was going to, quote, steal his soul.
What the French toast?
So it's like one night in this place. Dude, and this kid's like, there is something horrible there.
It's kind of scary that you did this topic and then 2 lights went out.
Yeah, 2 lights went out in our office today. There's only 4, so we only got 2 left. If those go out, you're not getting an episode this week, folks.
Yeah, fuck that shit.
I literally got so creeped out reading one of these details, I reached over and I was like holding my anti-evil charm from the shrine in Japan, and I was like, you're being such a little bitch. Like, this story's not even as scary as some of the other ones, but it definitely creeped me out. You would think that they would be relieved being back in the home that they had been staying in and away from the center of where this creepy stuff was happening, you know? If you go somewhere and something creepy happens, you want to retreat to home base.
Oh, yeah.
You want to go back to somewhere you feel safe. But that night, all of those folks in the house heard noises that seemed to be coming from the attic, otherwise known as the ceiling basement. So, never before had this happened. All of a sudden, there's this weird entity that's annoyingly stalking this kid. He comes home, tells them about this, and they all start hearing really creepy noises in the night.
It's because it knows now, you know?
So, when I read that, I was like, clearly it latched onto him, and it came home with him. So David did not have a good night. They all heard creepy shit. David had horrific night terrors that ended with him waking up and screaming, partially still in his nightmare. In the morning, David seemed off. His behavior was strange, and they don't detail exactly what he was doing when this starts.
Ugh.
But it's like Imagine someone becoming distant or lethargic, probably from lack of sleep, partially, and probably
kid is
because
11 years old.
Something really messed up is going on here. And the family became concerned after a few nights when the sounds from what I'm now calling the sky cellar, which is what you can call an attic as well, continued, and David's night terrors seemed to worsen. Aside from that, David noticed and presented the family that he had scratches and bruises appearing all over his body. So he's looking like he's being scratched and beaten up every night after he sleeps.
So did they go back to that house?
No. In fact, I only found a couple instances where they wind up going back to this house after this whole thing kicks off.
So they buy this house, then they're like, we're not moving in there.
Like, something creepy starts happening, but then it's all focused on the kid. And they're all, like, really concerned about something that's happening. So the family was also finding their clothes had been removed and thrown out of their drawers and their dressers when they woke up, and the ladies were having their makeup thrown to the floor in the night as well.
Wow.
So whatever this thing is, it's fucking everything.
How are they not
house.
hearing it happen?
They are. They're hearing creepy stuff going on, but if they finally fall asleep, they wake up and it's like all their clothes have been removed, or they leave a room and they come back in and all their clothes have been taken out and thrown on the fucking floor.
Oh my God.
It's almost like they have a cat.
Dude, that's so yeah, our cat Aria used to do that a lot.
She would open our dresser drawers and just pull shit out like, fuck this, fuck that, fuck you.
Oh my God, I hated coming home, and you can catch her in the middle of doing it, and she looks at you.
She just looks at you like, why are you staring at me? Like, let me do this in private.
Oh my goodness.
So the first line of defense that the family had was to call a priest to have their house blessed. The priest arrived and went through the standard ritual to bless the home, and despite this, the activity did not settle down.
I'm scared. I don't want to hear this.
I know. I have 4 more pages, too.
Oh, no.
David's behavior continued to get worse, and he began to have, quote, strange visions during the daytime. At times, again, even during the day, David would growl like an animal and was even heard speaking in a low, guttural, demonic voice. And the days started to pass, and the activity that had started literally upon just going into that house just got worse and worse. And their final straw before seeking additional assistance was witnessing David be assaulted by what seemed to be an invisible force, and scratches and bruises developing on his body from the unseen entity in front of them.
Wow. Oh my God, dude, I'm really scared.
Their nights took on a completely different cadence. It wasn't just him having night terrors. One member of the family would be assigned to stay awake with David and try and hold him down, because it wasn't just night terrors anymore. It was now painful spasms and convulsions. He would scream in pain,
It's
begging.
like this kid was possessed.
Yeah, and it just begs the question, like, how anyone got any sleep in the house. And then later on, I found out, okay, this makes sense. David would also move his arms and hands as though he was fending off attackers that were choking him or slashing or stabbing him, and wounds would appear, like, commiserate with, like, what he was trying to defend against.
Oh my God.
His acting out would cause him to strike those around him trying to help him throughout the night. The mom said that she was struck multiple times just trying to tell him everything's okay. During the day, this is one's actually really scary. During the day,
Oh, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it.
he would
I don't
zone.
wanna
No,
hear
I
it.
mean just like this whole topic.
Oh, okay.
He would zone out and enter into that guttural mode, and he would start quoting parts of either Paradise Lost or the Bible. In some cases, speaking Latin when he was quoting the Bible.
As a child.
As an 11-year-old. And I'm just like, Latin? That's weird, because the Bible was written in Aramaic to start with. Stupid demons. But that's just me trying to split hairs here. It's just one detail
But
that makes
maybe
me feel
they don't
a little
know the
bit better.
difference. Maybe
I'm pretty sure Latin is what you accidentally summon demons with, which is why they got rid of that language. Have you ever seen those memes? Where it's like, the reason Latin is no longer a language anyone uses is because when people were trying to learn it, they kept accidentally summoning demons.
Really?
No, it's a meme, dude. It's a joke. I just said
okay.
that. No, not really. That's not the reason
I'm
they stopped
tired,
using
okay?
it. So, this made the second strategy for dealing with this a little bit more difficult, because he was just zoning out during the day and, like, yelling and growling and shit. They started sleeping during the day. They'd all stay awake throughout the night to try and help David, because it was so bad. At the 12-day mark, 12 days, that's how long this took for this to pop off this bad.
Yeah.
Judy reached out to the folks she had seen do lectures that she thought could help them, Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Oof.
So it took her 12 days from this activity starting to reach out to them, and they did respond promptly, and upon entering the home and meeting David, Lorraine Warren claims she saw a black mist materialize next to David, because she's a medium.
Is this what that one movie is based on?
No movie that's
okay.
been made with Ed and Lorraine Warren in it yet, but that black mist thing is something that she sees In particular, when there is a malevolent force, especially when it's attached to a specific person. So my thought is like, find a different house, but there's really nothing they can do.
Right.
Because it's like they found this entity in this house. They're in their own house. So the Warrens cruised around the house they're in, the property that they had gone to, and they let the family know the bad news. One, olive green shutters are hideous as fuck.
Dude, yeah, I was thinking that when you first
so
brought
ugly,
it up,
right?
but I didn't want to say that in case someone does have olive green shutters on their yellow house.
I think it might actually work, but that's just some joke I put in here to cut the tension.
Depends on the yellow.
It does. That's
It
true.
does depend on the yellow.
The second piece of bad news was that David was in the process of being possessed. It was very clear that whatever this entity was trying to possess him. And not only that, but it was disturbing how very, very quickly it was happening. And as a side note, no shit, dude. Like, easy diagnosis on that one. David actually gave the name and entity, I wrote it wrong, gave a name to the entity that was tormenting him. And that name is the Beast.
No fucking way.
One of the creepier / cheesy things I read is that before he would start having an episode, and it was creepy when I was picturing it, and then it kind of made me laugh a little bit because I was trying to like
You're so...
not get too freaked out by it, but there was a warning sign that an episode was about to take place, or the Beast was about to manifest. His head would lower, like slinking all the way to his chest. So think like your chin on your sternum.
Yeah.
Like that's how far down it would go, where you like have trouble seeing his face directly. And then he'd slowly lift his head, and his eyes would be shut, and his face would start contorting into this vicious-looking snarl. And when he opened his eyes, they'd be white, because his eyes had rolled into
Sounds
the back
like
of his
bullshit.
head. So when I read that detail, I'm like, oh, The Undertaker. Awesome. And then he would laugh in a voice that did not seem like his own, like a deep, guttural, demonic laugh.
Okay.
The Warrens observed multiple instances of serious activity and began to arrange an exorcism with the church. Those who were in the house during these days in particular claim to have seen a lot of stuff. They saw plates levitating, and when they observed them, they crashed down to the ground. If you reached for a book, it would be moved out of your reach when you attempted to pick it up.
Nope.
Like something's just fucking trolling these people. A cake was baked at one point, and I can only imagine like you're trying to make comfort food.
Ugh.
Like you're trying to make something, and like you have guests on top of that. A cake was baked at one point, but before it could be removed from the cake pan, it floated to the ceiling and just fucking splattered on the ceiling. So it's like, no cake for anyone. That one would really trigger me, because I fucking love cake.
Oh my god.
A rocking chair was thrown through the air by an unseen force, and the creepiest one to me.
No, I don't
and
want
it
to
doesn't
know.
state a time of day this happened, but I know it was the nighttime. I know it was. A toy dinosaur that belonged to either David or his brother Carl was seen walking around the house on its own. Just imagine like a stegosaurus just cruising around the house, like tilting its head and like looking at you. Like that one creeped me the fuck out. One day, the phone rang, and Carl, the brother, answered.
No.
And a deep demonic voice said through the phone, "Beware," before he slammed the phone down. Debbie stated that one night she awoke to see a, quote, green hand rising out of the floor, which then slashed at her as she laid in bed, leaving scratches. She claims that at one point she did see the demon that was tormenting her brother as well, and her description of the entity is as follows, quote, "I saw a face with jagged teeth and coal-black eyes. It had horns and pointed ears." Multiple priests wound up being brought in to help combat the evil that they were dealing with, and they had come from St. Joseph's Parish nearby. They were there to assist with what is called, quote, lesser exorcisms, as they were unable to obtain permission for a full exorcism from the bishop of the region. Mm-hmm. It was at this time doing research I realized this incredibly extensive article I read, and I was going back to continuously because it had all these interviews with all the family members, was from 1981, and I found it in the archives accidentally. So this information is really, really fresh, even though I was reading a 40-year-old article. It's from the Washington Post, so it's not like it's from a tabloid, and it's being interviewed. They're interviewing the people that are completely associated with this incident. So it's not like people are speculating on stuff that happened 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the other articles that I saw where people are splitting hairs on details, I'm like, oh, like, according to this article that I'm reading from 1981, where it's quoting the actual people it happened to, the details are a little bit different. So that's the one I wound up going with quite a bit on this one. During the course of these lesser exorcisms, it was determined that David was possessed with 43 demons and 2 devils.
How do they know?
I don't know. And I put, that seems like a lot. According to Lorraine Warren, during one of these lessercisms, David levitated and began speaking about events that hadn't happened yet, demonstrating an ability that's known as precognition.
Well, but they don't know that it hasn't happened yet.
And some of the things that he was saying seemed like nonsense until the next day, when random things that he was saying, like a bird lands on a flower, that's just an example, not something he actually said, or weird shit, started happening. Not only did Lorraine Warren state that this happened, the priests stated this happened as well when they were spoken to. One of the other things David wound up stating would happen was that Cheyenne, his sister's fiance, would kill someone. One particular person who was frustrated with what was happening was Cheyenne, because he sincerely did believe something was happening to David, and he felt powerless. And at one point during the exorcism, he challenged the demons possessing David. He told them he wasn't afraid of them, that he would fight them. And I think a lot of people can empathize with, like, I'll fight you, demon, or like, it's me, your boy, you know, like shit like that.
Yeah.
In addition, he told them they should take him instead of David, because I've seen it in multiple sites where he claimed that he believed himself strong enough to fight them off or push them out, and he could help David that way. David told Cheyenne during the exorcism, quote, "They are laughing at you." Debbie and Cheyenne, I have goosebumps. Debbie and Cheyenne returned to the rental property to look around, to go back to the site where all this stuff had come from. And during that time, Cheyenne said aloud, "There he is, the beast, there he is."
What the
He was looking out the window as if he saw something, and Debbie looked and she didn't see anything. She then looked back at Cheyenne, and his face had contorted into the same snarl she had seen on her brother's face. He was showing his teeth, and he was growling out the window, the same way her brother had been. And she stated that she knew immediately what happened. It's a quote, "I knew immediately what happened." She then slapped him to snap him out of it, and he was completely unfazed when she hit him. So she hit him a second time as hard as she could, and he came to. When he came to, he did not remember what had happened after he saw the demon. She told him that the demon had moved into him now, not her brother, and his response was, quote, "Oh my God, oh no." At this point, it appears that the activity stopped with David. I think some things still continued as the demon or the entity tried to torment both of them at the same time.
Yeah.
But this now starts taking place over the course of many more days. So it's not just the 12 days or the 20 days or however long it took for the Warrens to get everything set up and bring people in.
Yeah.
Now it's starting to like do a slow shift from David into Cheyenne. At some point...
Do you think it's slow because Cheyenne was possibly stronger?
I think it's slow because it was tormenting 2 people at once, or it's all fake. But realistically, if I'm gonna like put on my I believe hat, I think it's because it was moving into him while also still like tormenting David on its way out. At some point, they attended church, and during Mass, Cheyenne stood up and yelled, quote, "Son of a bitch, I want to get out of here," and ran out of the church. As a side note, as scary as that can be, I think anyone who has been to church for like a really long service can kind of relate to that thought floating through their head.
No.
But Cheyenne then returned to the rental home alone on February 16th, 1981. He went there specifically to confront the beast.
Oh, God.
He had apparently somehow become aware that this entity resided in a deep well on the property.
What?
And he was going to go to that well and confront this
How
thing.
did he know?
I think he just felt drawn to it because of all the things he had been experiencing.
So I just watched Marianne, and in Marianne, there's a hole on their property.
Is it a hole or is it a vertical tunnel?
It's a vertical tunnel. And
shout out to the JJ Obsession. We had the debate about if a hole is just a vertical tunnel.
It was a vertical tunnel, and the main character of this movie is just drawn to this hole in the ground, and it was underneath a shed. So the family put a shed on top of this hole, and she is drawn to it. She opens the shed door and doesn't see anything in there, so she pushes the shed over and sees this hole in the ground. So that's just what that reminded me of. Like, you don't know, you just kind of feel it and you go to it, you know?
He went alone. He actually called off work, and I don't know if he told anyone where he was going. He might have, but he calls off work, decides he's going to go do this, goes to the property, goes and finds the well. He states that although he had been battling the entity to that point, and at this point he was losing time, he would feel something like taking him over, and he would go into those states where he was like growling or hissing or like speaking in like tongues or whatever. And he wouldn't remember anything. He wouldn't remember anything, and people would tell him like, this just happened, dude, like something's really wrong. So that's why he decided he's going to go and confront the thing. He states that upon peering into the well, he saw this entity in the well, and after that, he doesn't remember a thing. He was fully possessed at that point.
Oh, God.
Bringing him there and looking at this thing is what like the trigger was for it to take him over completely. Debbie states that one particular symptom of Cheyenne's possession that she only noticed one time was that when he spoke, two voices came out.
Fuck that.
This happened on February 16th, 1981, when she saw him after he went and looked in the well. So why do I know that date so well? Why have I mentioned it twice? Because it's marked a lot in the court documents that I had to go over. So while Cheyenne was doing this because he called out, Debbie was at her job at a kennel. She worked there with Cheyenne and Cheyenne's sister, along with her own 9-year-old cousin, Mary. It's the 1980s. It's like 1981 at this point. A 9-year-old working at a kennel. Like, kind of cute. She's taking care of animals, stuff like that. Still seems like child labor laws, but we'll look past it for this story. Cheyenne and Debbie's landlord also owned the kennel they worked at. His name was Alan Bono. He took the girls out for lunch at a local bar. They wound up eating, he wound up drinking, and he got drunk during lunch. The day went on, and he kept drinking. The girls went back to work, and after work, Debbie took the girls out for pizza. Something told her on the way that something just wasn't right, and she needed to go home. So she did. Upon returning home, their landlord, Bono, was shit-faced and agitated, and during their attempt to calm him down, I guess somehow this progressed into their apartment, he grabbed a hold of Mary's arm and refused to release her. So this 9-year-old girl, he grabbed her and would not let her go. And they were telling him, like, you have to let her go, dude. Like, you can't behave like this. And at this time, when all this is boiling over with their drunk landlord, Cheyenne comes home.
Oh, no.
He witnessed what was happening and demanded Bono release Mary, which he did. Probably the two voices thing carried a bit more assertiveness than a normal person.
Yeah.
Mary ran down to the car. She didn't just run to her room. She ran out of the apartment and to the car when she was released. Cheyenne immediately knew when they got Mary away from Bono, she needed to step in between Bono and Cheyenne because something bad was about to happen. She stood there between both dudes trying to keep them apart, one drunk and one possessed, in an effort to keep things from getting too bad.
Isn't being drunk a form of possession?
Yeah, self-possession. Well, it just depends if you have a problem or not. Cheyenne's sister also grabbed him and tried to drag him away. She said it was like trying to move a boulder. He would not move, was completely unable to budge him. He began to snarl and show his teeth and began to growl at Bono. Bono countered by singing, yeah, 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 yeah.
I knew you were going to make that fucking U2 joke or some shit.
Obviously, I made that up. That's a different Bono. Cheyenne continued to growl like a rabid animal while Debbie tried desperately to keep him from boiling over. Cheyenne then removed a 5-inch blade from his pocket and stabbed Bono 5 times. One of the stab wounds extended from the stomach to the base of the heart. These were vicious stab wounds. There was a lot of screaming and a lot of blood. The police were
is
called.
It self-defense at that point, though? It's like, you touched my fucking kid.
Well, we'll get to it. So the police were called. Cheyenne walked slowly from the apartment after the stabbing. He didn't speak to anyone. Walked into the woods behind the apartment and just wandered off into the darkness. Bono was rushed to the hospital and died a few hours after the stabbing. Cheyenne was found wandering the woods for 2 miles, or 2 miles away from the apartment, did not remember a thing. He was covered in blood and still had the knife in his hand. I believe that detail is contested about whether or not he had the murder weapon or if he dropped it on the site. However, he claims he doesn't remember anything involving the murder. He tried to explain the situation to the police, which is where the phrase, "the devil made me do it," came from, and was assisted when Lorraine Warren notified the police that she believed he had become fully possessed when the crime was committed. This, of course, was controversial. Cheyenne's lawyer tried to enter a plea for the trial of not guilty by reason of possession, the first time that defense was ever attempted to be used in the United States of America. It was also the first murder in the history of Brookfield, Connecticut, the town it took place in. Brookfield, Connecticut existed for 193 years.
Wow.
Without a single murder, and then the devil fucked everything up. The plea wound up being self-defense because the judge said, absolutely not, you can't use that because you cannot confirm it with evidence or prove it objectively. So you need to find another way to defend your client. So the plea wound up being self-defense. The entire family involved, with one exception, completely supported this plea and still do to this day. That this is the reason this happened is because of demonic possession. It got tons of media attention at the time.
I believe it.
When someone came out and said, we're using defense by way of possession, the media was all over it. But when the judge disallowed possession as a defense, the media kind of trickled away. Cheyenne had never committed a single crime prior to this. He did not have a violent history. He had a reputation for being a good, gentle, and genuine person. He was found guilty of first-degree manslaughter and sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison. He served just under 5 years, just a shade under 5 years, and was released early for good behavior. The warden stated he was, quote, an exemplary... God damn it, I knew I was going to screw that word up. An exemplary...
Exemplary?
He was such a good inmate.
Okay.
Thank you, I'm too tired to say it. He married Debbie just before he was released in 1986, so even though they were fiancés, and
was
he
he
was in prison
still
for
possessed?
5 years... I guess after this, the demon just left them be. Like, it got what it wanted, it got a murder, it took a life, and then it just moved on. But he married Debbie just before he was released in 1986. 2016 is the most recent article I can find to confirm this, but after 30 years of marriage, Cheyenne and Debbie are still together.
Wow.
The entire family supports the fact that what had happened and the death was a result of the demon or the entity that they had battled with David's possession. Yeah. And in 2006, the book based off of the events was republished, and Carl Glatzel, the little brother, the one who I'm pretty sure owned that toy that walked around on its own, he sued the publisher for libel. He claims that the story was created by the Warrens in an attempt to gain money for the family and fame for themselves. And when the murder occurred, he stated that Lorraine Warren claimed it could help him get out of jail if they all went along with the story. I don't know how much I believe that, because everyone else involved with this, including Debbie, Judy, Cheyenne, obviously, and Cheyenne's family, still support the story to this day. And the events that led up to the murder all took place before they knew he needed an alibi. So it bothers me when it's like this was all just an alibi for the murder thing, because the series of events that unfolded took place where they had to request a priest, they had to bring in the Warrens for the possession, and it was David that was possessed. It was never Cheyenne, you know? It was Cheyenne once he started challenging him, and Ed Warren told him, like, you do not do that ever during an exorcism. Like, you cannot do something like that. And Ed Warren stated when he got there, he immediately knew something was seriously wrong. The series of events that I just described to you will be the basis for an upcoming movie, The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It, which is the name of it. They just released in December the poster for it. It comes out September 11th.
Is there a trailer?
2020. I don't think there's a trailer yet. They just released the poster for it, but the original cast, the two folks who play Ed and Lorraine Warren, are coming back again to play Ed and Lorraine Warren in this movie. So now you all know the story of how it supposedly happened. And when the movie comes out, we can all go see it and afterwards tell our friends how much they changed for the movie. And I will say, on a personal note, and I kind of already brought this up, this story really did creep me out more than almost all the topics I've covered in the past, with a few exceptions like The Exorcist and a few other ones. But some of the details just seemed so fucking creepy.
Yeah.
Mainly the priests validating the precognition by David during the time of possession, and the telekinetic movement of objects in the home also validated by multiple people. But Who knows? It could all be a story that was concocted for fame and then eventually just used as a defense to help this guy get out of jail. And Ed and Lorraine Warren and the priests who were there and helping David did so without knowing there would be a trial associated with this.
Yeah.
So if it was just like a fame grab after, and a cash grab after, it was like out of convenience. And even the bishop, when they reached out to him for comment in 1981, stated like, possession is something where we are officially sanctioning the church to do battle with evil. And they don't do that without having multiple people check someone out to make sure it's not a mental illness in any way, shape, or form. And that's what was so scary about this one, is that typically events like this take place over the course of months or even years sometimes. And this kid went from fine to possessed in like 12 days. So the amount of time it takes to coordinate an exorcism on this, and it just is scary, dude. It's straight up scary.
Yeah.
And they said, like, do you have anything that you want to give the paper or any other media sources about the events? And he's like, the official position of the church is we have no comment. And it's like, there's nothing that they could have done. So in less than a year, it went from good, happy family to kid got possessed, guy got possessed, guy murdered someone.
Yeah.
Which is just absolutely bizarre. So maybe it was just the extreme stress of the situation, and some drunken asshole manhandling a 9-year-old girl set off Cheyenne, and it wasn't actually possession, but who knows. But that, my spooky friends, is the possession of David Glatzel, otherwise known as the Devil Made Me Do It case.
That's crazy. Like, that is just oh my goodness.
It's probably going to make a good movie. And one of the interviews,
I can't wait to see it.
One of the interviews I saw is someone was asking Ed and Lorraine Warren, like, how come every time you guys show up, you write a book immediately afterwards and you try and turn it into a movie?
It's like that guy from Haunting at Hill House. You just do.
And so Lorraine Warren said, like, are we trying to help? Yes. Are we going to write a book? Yes. Are we talking about a movie? No. Our agent is, though. Our agent is talking about that with our parent company. But it's 40 years later, you know?
Yeah.
Both of the Warrens have passed away, and the movie's finally being made. And it wouldn't shock me to learn that David, the kid who was possessed, and his brother Carl wind up suing the studio. Because, I mean, they sued the publisher when they re-released the book.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't want to dig too much into the family history, because I do want to be respectful, especially since, like, this was libel, and it was a suit that was filed against the publisher because he felt like it destroyed his life. Like, that's what Carl flat out stated. Like, he had to move, he couldn't keep friends, he couldn't keep a job because it was so well known.
Oh, man.
So it's like, when you try and tell a story about something that happened, you have to always acknowledge the fact that these are real people, that something actually happened to them, regardless of whether or not it was paranormal. It was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying.
Sounds like it, yeah.
Whether it was someone with a mental illness that just triggered really, really hard for a while. And, you know, I don't want to try and look up, and I probably wouldn't be able to obtain any sort of document stating whether or not David wound up having
therapy
other issues
and stuff like that,
along the road. But, I mean, I couldn't find any follow-up that crimes have been committed or there have been other issues involving, like, possession. So you just don't know what struggles that they go through after the fact. But it really did remind me of the Exorcism one that I looked up, where it's like, it was a kid. It seemed by all accounts he was actually possessed. And after the possession, quote-unquote, ended, there was never a follow-up. There was never a documented run-in with the law. And on top of that, with that case, we were able to find documentation from the church that stated that during their follow-up, he was okay. So
yeah,
I was hoping to find something like that for this particular case, but I honestly didn't dig too deep because I felt like this is really... it's been 40 years, and it's still a really sensitive topic to anyone who was involved with it. So I just wanted to find what I found and told you folks. So yeah. I hope you appreciated it. But
Thank you for all the scary things.
That's everything I have. So I think that's just about everything that we have for Scaryish episode 116. Again, if you folks have a story you would like to share with us, it doesn't have to be about demonic possession. It can be about a variety of things. You can email storytime@scaryish.com or go to our website, scaryish.com, and click on Contact Us, or reach out to us on any of our social medias. Robin, for folks who would like to donate to us monetarily, how can they do so?
You can go on over to patreon.com/scaryish podcast, and those are monthly donations, whole bunch of different tiers to check out. And then we do have coffee, ko-fi.com/scaryish podcast, and those are one-time donations that go to upgrading our studio setup.
Indeed. But yeah, like I said, that's about everything that we got. So we will be on the air live in around 16 hours.
So when this episode comes out, it'll be way less than that.
Yeah, 16 hours for us. Probably realistically, when you guys are listening to this, in a few hours, 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
See you guys soon.
So, yeah, if you guys are going to join us, we will see you soon. But Robin, for now, go ahead and sign us out.
Keep on creeping on, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Bye.